Get your game faces on. All right. We're live. Oh my gosh, we're live. Hello, everybody. Hello. Don't fall down. Little intro. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a really awesome and spectacular panel. As you guys come in, say hey. Let us know where you're coming from. If you're coming from Facebook, YouTube. I am really, really excited. Like, more reallys than normal. I'm really excited to host this panel. I'm very honored and grateful that these women are coming forward to not only share their stories, but share their experience with this topic, which is domestic violence. And, as most of us know, domestic violence is a humongous, humongous problem, not only in the United States, but in Canada, Canada, you're in Canada, right, Aaron? No? Okay, so globally as well. And so today, for those of you who kind of follow the show, you'll know that I asked a while back to have people come on to share this space, share this panel, and talk about this subject, because this is a subject I never watched, but this panel. This is a subject I feel that we just don't talk about enough. I know that COVID kind of brought domestic violence to the forefront. But again, the fact that it is such a rampant pandemic upon itself proves that we just have not shed enough light on this. So without any further ado, as you guys come in, say, hey, please join in on this conversation. Angela, thank you for being here. I'm glad you made an exception for this panel. I'm glad you made an exception for this panel. Come in and say, hey, join in this conversation. Please bring your seat to the table, bring your voice, because in order for us to start really meeting this at the forefront, really start getting a handle on this, we have to raise our voices. We have to realize that in order for us to change things, it is going to require us speaking loudly and speaking to as many people as we can about what we've gone through, who we know, and how we can provide solutions and provide help. So if you catch us on the replay, hashtag replay, and I'm going to dive into introduce these ladies. So hello and welcome to the Tough Woman Roundtable, you guys. This is the table where I invite some amazing people to pull a seat up to the table and join together and create an epic conversation. At Tough Woman, I believe that all people have the power within themselves to live life authentically, free from fear, confident in who they are, and empowered to live a life that sets their soul on fire. I also believe that by one person showing up in their power, we give other people permission to step into their own power, thus giving us the opportunity to rise together. It is through this joint rising that we move ourselves and humanity forward to a more beautiful way of living and being. So, as I always say, pull up a seat, tune in, and join us as we do epic conversations that move, and we remind everyone of how truly powerful we all are within. Woo! All right. All right, you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off the introductions, and then we're going to get this ball rolling, because I have no doubt this is going to we're going to look and it's going to be 8:30, so I don't want to wait. Oh, we lost Nikki. Oh, and we lost Nikki. I didn't even see that. Hopefully she comes back.
I'm having trouble with the sound, I think, so.
Okay. All right. So that's fine. We'll do introductions when Nikki comes in. We'll bring her back in. So hello, my name is Ashley. I am the CBO of Tough Woman Coaching Company. As Aaron kind of brought it to light, I would call myself an authentic activator. So I help people activate their authentic selves, bring about their greatness at a cellular level, and really tap into living that life that sets their soul on fire. I am a previous domestic violence survivor, like a lot of the women on here, and we'll go into there comes Nikki. But there we go. Okay, which is a lot of the reason why I started getting into coaching, and we'll go into that a little bit more when we get there. But Nikki, are you good?
I lost audio, then I lost feed, and I'm like, oh, fantastic! This is a great start.
All right,
my bad.
It's fine, because you go ahead. I'm like, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and who you serve.
I am the least technically savvy person on the planet. That's number one. My name is Nikki. I am the queen of the bounce back. So my story often gets linked to the fact that I have been fighting multiple sclerosis for the last 14 years. But a lot of people don't realize that my fight And my advocacy started a long time before that because as a child, I was in a domestic violence situation. My father was incredibly physically, mentally, emotionally abusive, to the point where at 16, I was then removed actually from the state because the bruises were so frequent. So legality got involved. And yeah, so my fight and my advocacy started before MS. And so it's been, trying to give a voice to the voiceless and trying to end the silence, I guess. You know, Domestic violence has so many facets, face.
Oh, there she goes. All right. We're going to keep coming back. All right, Kay.
I keep getting, oh my goodness. Yes. Sorry, y'all. Freaking. But yeah, so basically just because it has so many, domestic violence has so many different faces, it can be a relationship, it can be a family situation, it could be somebody, who you're a parent, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's basically, it's been a long journey, just trying to be an advocate.
Awesome. All right, Kay.
Hello, everyone, and I appreciate the opportunity, Ashley, that you've got us all together because I think this conversation is so important. So I am the mother of 4 delightful daughters, and I experienced domestic violence, about 8 years of heavy domestic violence, and I am now known as the courage activator because I think we all need to move beyond what's holding us back in life and live till and do what we need to do to become the best versions of ourselves possible so that we are well equipped to deal with lots of things. And I also think that it is very important that those of us who have gone through hardship and challenges, that once we step up and come to the plate and do that inner work, then we have the potential to support other people on the journey. And more domestic violence issues are being exposed, and I think we all need to come together to support each other, and these things need to be heard.
All right, Erin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Erin. Wow, my voice cracked on that one. I'm Erin Bear. I live in Colorado, and I am the founder of Beaten to Badass. I help empower those who have been beaten down by domestic violence, sexual assault, bullying, abandonment, whatever life is beating you down with. I help you empower yourself to become the badass you're meant to be by starting the conversation, raising awareness, giving back, and implementing change. I'm a speaker, author, and coach, and I just feel that once one person raises their voice and speaks up, more people will raise their voice and speak up, and we can become louder, and then we can't be ignored. And then that is when we can truly implement change and end domestic violence.
Amen. All right, Samantha.
Heck yeah. Hey, guys. I'm Samantha Nicole. I am a leader, a mentor, a coach, a social media influencer, sharing my story very vulnerably, uncomfortably online to raise awareness and share with women and show them that they can rise up. I got into self-help and personal development after I left an abusive relationship after about a decade, almost a decade. It was most of my 20s. And having to go through, custody and experience domestic violence at the same time, and having, protective orders. There's a lot of things within the courts that I advocate for now and help other victims and survivors go through that process. I'm linked up with a few other places online and just share my story and empower other women and really make a change and make an impact right here, right on this digital platform.
Amen. All right. So, ladies, you guys talked a little bit, but I wanted to ask, what was the reason that made you want to start becoming really vocal about domestic violence that would lead you to be on a panel like this? Because I think it's, Erin, you talked about it, and I talk about it a lot when I do these shows. By one person raising our voice, we're going to help other people do that the same. So I would ask you, ladies, what is it that makes you want to raise your voice? What is it that and this is like a little bit about what caused you what did you go through in your situation that really made you want to bring light to this situation that that the situation that is domestic violence? Because I feel like for us, it's like giving a voice to the voiceless, because I think when you go through something like that, you just feel like you have no voice, that nobody would care if they're, about what is going on in your world. So I am going to start with Samantha, actually, and then we're going to go backwards this way. So what is it that has made you such an advocate? Like you said, you dived a little bit into it, but tell us just a little bit more about what it is that got you to being so vocal about domestic violence.
My whole life turned upside down when I had left. I was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety and depression, and I didn't have a voice. I didn't have me. I lost all of me. I questioned everything I did. And the day I left was the day that I took my life back. And I moved back in with my parents, rock bottom, all three of my kids back in one bedroom. I said, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to take this year because I had help, and that's huge to have a support system. And I got my voice back, and turns out she's loud. Turns out when I look at myself in the mirror, there's somebody staring back at me, and I believe in her now, and I didn't before. And it took a lot of self-healing and a lot of stuff coming up, to really be able to heal myself. And shared that journey very uncomfortably online. From the day I left, I was very open about that. And I feel that I found me. I found my voice. I'm loud, and it's crazy because before, for most of my 20s, I was very submissive and quiet, and that's not really who I am. So finding my voice is what has helped me show up and share that and help other women find theirs too. It's really empowering feeling to get that back.
All right. Erin, what is it that brought you to your journey?
So I was in the abusive relationship over 11 years ago, and when I kicked the guy out, it wasn't the adult self of me kicking him out. It was the little girl inside me that said, this is enough. We're tired of this. No, this is not how we're supposed to be treated. This is not how we're supposed to be loved. Love doesn't hurt. And so when that little girl inside me spoke up and kicked the guy out, kicked the monster out, I realized that there was still spark in me. There was still something left. And it was a long journey, from the moment I kicked him out till animal control came and took his cats. And then they decided to, press charges because I just wanted it to all go away. And the little girl fought for both of us. And so when I received my restitution check after being $18,000 in debt from financial abuses, on top of the emotional and the physical and the sexual abuse, I looked at that check and it was $1,000. And I looked at that check for a while, and I stared at it, and I was like, no amount of money will ever make what he did okay. And I was given so much from the court system and the family crisis center that helped me. And I looked at that check and I said, what, if I'm ever in a position to give back and speak up, then I will make it my life's mission. I will promise myself this day, and to God, because I'm a believer in God or the spirit or whatever you want to, call it. And I promised myself. So fast forward to, last year, God said, it's time, girlfriend, speak up and tell your story. So I wrote my book, and I've made it my life's mission to give back and to show people that you are a badass, and life can keep beating you down, but you're a badass. You just have to get back up, and your circumstances do not define you. You just have to make that choice. And I promised myself, and I don't break a promise to myself, and I've upheld that. And it's because the little girl in me 11 years ago fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself.
Okay.
Well, I just want people to know that there is hope, because I think you can get yourself into a situation where you don't know where to turn. You don't. I think at first we can be in the shock and the trauma of things, and we don't know who to speak to. We feel vulnerable, and we don't want to expose ourselves. And I think it's important for us to give the message that there is hope. You can move beyond whatever your circumstance, and don't let fear hold you back, and find your courage within. And when you find your courage within, you you can then blossom and you can conquer whatever it is that you need to conquer. But us speaking is giving other people an opportunity to listen. Look at all you lovely women here, powerful women who have overcome that adversity. And yet I'm sure there is a point, has been a point where we have not felt powerful. We've felt very powerless, very vulnerable, very scared, very frightened, and not known where to turn and who to turn to. Because I think there's a certain amount of shame that we feel when we have experienced, abuse on all levels. So I just want to offer people hope. Yeah. And yeah.
Nope. Can you hear us?
Yep. Who's Nikki?
Hello, Nikki. Can you hear us?
No.
No.
No, she can't hear. Oh no.
Oh no.
All right. I'll talk a little bit about mine, and then hopefully she can hear us in a moment. So what brought me to doing? I have no audio. All right. Nikki, go back out and come back in. I'll let you back in. I promise. Go back out. Technical difficulties. I think we're in the middle. We're either going into a retrograde or we're in a retrograde. I can't remember. But what got me here was I had been dating since I was like 14 until the divorce with my ex-husband when I was 26. And every person that I date had a really recurring theme. They were an addict in some form and they were abusive in some form. So like my daughter's father was sexually abusive. I actually remember him one time getting so mad at me because I didn't want to have sex with him that he would kick me out of the bedroom and kick me out of the bed. And then up to my son's father, my ex-husband, who was emotionally abusive. I think he cheated on me repeatedly. And then up till actually quite recently, he put hands on my son and his daughter, which we're actually dealing with in the current moment. But what brought me to this was I got to this point where, a lot like you, Samantha, I ended up back at my mom's as a single mom with 2 kids. I now had 2 fathers to both my kids who were both just not what they needed to be. And I hit rock bottom. I was like, oh my God, like what the hell is this? Like, this is not your life. This isn't what you're meant for. I had a really huge coming to God moment. And I said that this is not what you were here for. And that I knew that if I could turn my life around, I would do everything in my power possible to help other women do the same and help other people come up as well. So yeah, like you said, Kay, I think it's really important that we talk about this because the one thing I actually want to go into next is domestic violence takes many forms. We often look at domestic violence as, getting hit or physical abuse. But this is actually something I think I really want to start the discussion off with is what was the face of domestic violence when you were experiencing it? Because I think it's really important that we understand that domestic violence isn't just being hit in the face or being tossed around. Domestic violence can be sexual. Aaron said, it can be financial. It can be everything. So I would have to ask you, ladies, what did domestic violence look like to you when you were in your situation? Because I think it's very important to bring light to the many different ways that domestic violence can show up. Because there might be people out there going, "Well, he hasn't hit me yet, so it's not domestic violence." But the fact of the matter is, there's a million other things. So yeah, I would love to, and this is, or either any of you ladies can jump in if you want, and tell us, what did domestic violence look like when you were in it? What did that face look like?
It resonated so much with me when you just said, he doesn't hit me, but he doesn't hit me. I said that for 4 years, and I was beaten down every day with his words, with his emotions, with the gaslighting and the silent treatment and the constant walking on eggshells, the constant fear, panic. You don't come out the same when your brain is put in that much trauma for so long. I think that's why I stayed, because I was hopeful that I could change him, that I could fix him, that I believed that it was something that I was doing wrong, that I was too much, and I lived in that mindset for years, until starting to talk with other people, and no, that's not right. No, that's not right. Or scrolling through social media. Oh, wow, they look so happy. This can't be right.
Yeah.
And I knew something was wrong, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. And so for my journey and experiencing what narcissistic personality disorder was and what that meant, and me being an empathic person and understanding that dynamic between a narcissist and an empath. And I started doing my research, and my whole world just opened up with other women, and so much support and love. And wow, me too. Wow, I'm not the only one. What is this word narcissist? What does that mean? And that's when it occurred to me that I was, embarking on something that was a lot deeper than I, there's all kinds of coaching out there now specific to this, and with kids being involved, and they look on the outside so charming, and they appear, and that was a big fight for me. That was a really big fight for me, especially in court. Oh, well, she's crazy, and all of that. And I lost me, and I found me, and it kind of started with that. So that's what that looked like for me. Was mostly the verbal, the mental, but it did lead to physical, violence towards the end. But yeah, I remember being on repeat, for so long, but he doesn't hit me. So that's really what I want to stand up and speak to that woman.
And Nikki, I asked the question before. Are you good? Can you hear?
I can now. I don't know what is going on, but real life technical difficulties, like in real life. Yeah. It's so funny because I'm all about like transparency and like showing up as a real me, and this is real life, and it's like, yeah, authentically imperfect. Sorry, y'all. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
it kept cutting out. I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear I'm like, huh.
Hey, man, it happens. Right? It happens. But before you got cut off, I had asked, like, what was it that brought you to the panel? And then we were just discussing right now, what did the face of domestic violence look like for you? Because there is really, I think, a stigma against domestic violence, and that domestic violence really is centered on when you get hit. Like, you think of domestic violence and it's getting beat on and stuff, but really domestic violence comes in the form of gaslighting or sexual abuse or financial.
That is.
Do you want to add that as well? It's like, what did domestic violence look like for you? Because again, this is a really important thing. We need to understand that it's not just, oh, well, he's not hitting me, or she's like, even she's not hitting me. It's like, I'm not being hit, so it's not domestic violence. Like, I didn't recognize that.
So
my ex-husband doing what he was doing was domestic violence, but it was.
Right. No. So I think one of the most important things for me to get out there is that since I was a child and grew up in it, it was almost normalized for me. So I think people expect even adult women, but even, younger children to almost like wear this sign, like I'm getting abused, or, they're almost surprised when, oh, I would never think that. My whole thing was I did all I could to hide the fact. I was so scared that my dad was going to find out that other people knew. That I tried my hardest to deny it, to come up with a story, to cover my bases, because I was more scared of my dad than anything else. So my biggest thing was, it's not always going to stare you in the face. It's not always a black eye. Like you said, it's not always, right there and visible. So for me, it was, I almost like had to get talked out. You live in it for so long. So the physical part happened. It started about when I was 10 to about 16 when I was finally legally removed. But the mental and the emotional abuse was for as far back as I could remember. And I think, in highlighting invisible, abuses. Gaslighting is huge. Gaslighting is, and I'm sorry if y'all went through this before, but gaslighting is absolutely huge. It's that silent, you know, that making you doubt yourself, that control and manipulation over your own thoughts. So you don't know who to trust outside of you. You don't know if you can trust yourself. You don't know who to go to. So it's all different forms of manipulation, which is where it gets really unhealthy and dangerous. Because, like I said, you're not even doubting the outside world now. Now you're doubting you. Now you're like, well, am I? Is it really that bad? Am I envisioning this? Do I deserve? So many things come up when it's like, no. So it's super important, I think, to realize that it doesn't come in a straight package. It's not a one size fits all. It's not every individual situation is going to look the same, but it's trauma nonetheless. It's abuse nonetheless. So yeah, I think that's important.
I'll have to ask you ladies the same thing. So what did domestic violence look like for you? And Kay or Erin, you can go first.
I'll let you go, Erin.
Okay, go ahead. Do you want me to go or you want to go?
No, you can go first. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So for me, it all happened fairly quickly. I just moved to Colorado from finishing my master's degree. So I was smart, I was intelligent. I've been independent since I was 14. And I never even imagined that I would ever be in an abusive situation. You hear about it and you're like, not me. This would never happen to me. Because the moment I see any kind of flag, which we're not educated about, right? We're not educated about the red flags of abuse. I would be out in an instant. And for me, it was literally a lot of emotional abuse and putting me down and saying I'm not good enough. And just the same stuff that I was fed throughout my life when I was bullied and abandoned, throughout my childhood. So when I found this guy, I thought, he loved me because he said that I should be lucky for somebody like him to love me. I should be so lucky to be paid attention to or be somebody of his stature, which, looking back, I don't know how I was fooled, but, the manipulation and the status and everybody thought he was charming and good looking and, oh, we made such a cute couple and all the bullshit. And, quickly he moved in with me and I was like, why are you moving in? It's only been 2 weeks since we started dating, like what the heck? And he was like, well, if you care about me or you want to be with me, you'll let me stay. And so you get trapped in this idea or idealistic idea of a relationship or what it's supposed to be. And he's telling you what it is when it completely makes you think you're going crazy when you doubt it. So you think, oh, well, he's older than me or he knows he's the guy. So he used male privilege. He, financially abused me. He physically abused me, mentally, emotionally. I had it all. And then he eventually, raped me. And of course, the next day after all of it, it's like, oh, you're making that up. It never happened that way. It wasn't as bad as you thought, or the red roses came. Every time I got beat or I got abused or whatever it may be, it was, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. It'll never happen again. And it constantly happened over and over again. So it became the norm. And I was isolated from my family, my friends. I had moved out to a new state by myself, thinking that, that was the best thing for me to get away from the abuse I was experiencing from my family and from all of that baggage to a new life. And then here I went right into more baggage. And so I think people need to understand that you were blindsided. You can be as intelligent and you can have as much status as you want. I mean, I have an MBA, I'm intelligent, I'm strong, I'm very independent, and I got blindsided. And I had no idea I was in an abusive situation until the people in my life said the right thing at the right time. And then it was a woman, and she knew without saying you're being abused. She simply said, I need you to do some research on the flags of domestic abuse. And one by one, I checked them off, and I was like, holy shit, like, is this really happening? What do I do now? How the hell do I get out? I remember her calling, I called her and I said, her name. And she goes, I know, honey, I already know. And I go, what do I do? She goes, you stay put until we figure it out. And that's when it got scary. When you come to the realization that you're in an abusive situation, you were already walking on eggshells. Now put those eggshells down, right? And then put shattered glass on top. It becomes very dangerous. The moment you have that light bulb click off in your mind and you're like, I'm in an abusive situation, how do I get out of this? It becomes more dangerous. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's not being in this situation that's as deadly as leaving the situation. So it starts off very small, very quickly. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how to do all the steps, and then you're caught in the riptide before you even realize it. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. People think that we ask for it or we should know better. It's not as black and white.
Definitely. It's not that easy. It definitely isn't. Especially as a child, I can remember so many times like where this is my family, this is my father, this is my like where do I even go? Who do I tell? When I actually got removed, my family disowned me because you never speak out against the family. And I was like, oh, well then. Sorry, not sorry. Like at 16, I was like, the state took me, I'm taking this out. Like, that's a fortunate event. I was blessed for that out because I don't even know if I would have mentally, because I grew up in that, I don't even know if I would have mentally, it almost didn't click until I'm like sitting in a police station and they're asking me questions and I'm like, wait, what is my actual life right now? What is actually happening here? So it's, people think it's so easy just to end, in a relationship. Same thing. People think it's so easy to just leave. Well, where do you go? Do you have children? Do you have family? Do you have friends that know each other? Do you, are they dangerous? Are they angry? Are they going to look for you? Is it something where you're going to be looking over your shoulder now? There's so much that goes into the leaving process that, like y'all said, it's not as easy as you may think. It's not as easy as, well, why don't you just leave? Because if it was, we would.
Okay, I think that leads into you nicely. Is what did domestic violence look like to you?
Yeah, well, I agree with it, with everything everybody's saying, and I think it's interesting that the patterns seem to be very similar. I didn't have abuse as a child, but I look back and think in a way, well, I didn't have overt or, upfront abuse, but in my time, I don't think we were encouraged to think for ourselves. I was very, nurtured, protected, brought up in a loving Christian family and so forth. But I did have a domineering father who, thinks that if you don't have your children, under control by the time they're 2, well, you've lost hope. And I understand he's coming from the right place, but I think it also meant that I grew up with an acceptance of everybody else, and you just think everybody's, from my point of view, which is very different than what I'm hearing here, that you just think everyone comes, is brought up in a loving, caring family, and that's not the case. And so, I met my husband, and the same thing, he moved in very quickly, and it wasn't really, I don't know, it just happened. And then he wanted to get married, and I thought, oh, well, we're living together, why not? And, what's the difference? I hadn't really thought much through. There was not much discussion. And then throughout, actually from day one onwards, or as it turned out, he was having affairs behind the scenes. And that was a subtle form of abuse. And when that came out into the open, I just said, well, if that's what you want to do, if that's really what you want to do, go and do it. But I don't want to be a part of it. Let's separate. Oh, no, I won't do it again. That old story, won't do it again. I don't even know that I got a sorry. But anyway, I sort of lived for 13 years and had 3 children. And every time I was pregnant, it seemed he wanted to go and have another affair. And I'd be saying, well, let's separate. No. But I realised that we didn't really deal with things properly. It was just hearsay. And I just think that we need to really get some proper counselling, do some proper healing. If you are living in a situation where you're not happy, you need to deal with it, not just put up with it. And for me, I was isolated physically where we lived. other friends were into swapping partners and things like that. So it was I was like, I'm a bit older than you lot. So it was it was almost a part of the norm in some circles that you didn't have to stick to your same partner. And then anyway, eventually we separated because he left me for another woman. And I was totally devastated because I had 3 young children and I really held the family unit in high regard. And I was very vulnerable, moved home with my parents for a while, left the state because I thought, well, if you want that other lady, you can have her, but I'm out of here. I don't want to know about it, because she lived just down the road. It was complex. And anyway, we decided to separate. Then he wanted me back again. I came back, but it was still all happening. So I packed up and left, moved to a different state. And I was totally devastated. I had no idea how I was going to support my 3 young children. My youngest, I was still breastfeeding. And I was at a very low ebb when someone came into my life who held me, cuddled me, and I thought I was getting this nurturing, because in hindsight, my marriage was not a very nurturing relationship, full stop. Like there were some things we had that probably looked on the outside where we had things together, we achieved a lot, we bought land, we built a house, and we did all sorts of things, but that personal communication and care was not there. So I'd already spent 13 years fairly unnurtured on a deep level, and then I was vulnerable, 3 young children, and I thought in my head, oh, no one would want to take a lady on with 3 young children. And someone came into my life who was not in a very good place himself, but I was so desperate that it felt good at the time to be cuddled and held and nurtured. And that's when I really hit a narcissistic relationship. There was abuse and control, and it flowed onto my children. And I was initially too scared to do anything about some of it. I didn't know what was happening to my children at that stage. But I was concerned that if we separated, that he would have access to the youngest daughter that was his. And I was worried about that. I was worried about her leaving the family home. So I tolerated far too much until my children disclosed that they were being sexually abused. And then I was concerned because what the government here does is they don't remove the perpetrator, they remove the children. So unless I did something about it. So I bundled the kids up in the car and I did a road trip and went away to kind of get my head around what my next step was. So I took the children out of the situation with me so that the government didn't come in and do what, Nikki experienced and maybe others of you experienced. So that's why I'm so on about us doing the inner work ourselves so that we can move beyond where we are. So when we move into another relationship, we are more whole and we're not shattered and battered and incomplete and not in a position where we can make good, stable, well thought out and well felt decisions about where to from here. So my saying is there's life after divorce or separation, and it can be wonderful, but we really have to do that inner work, that inner healing, put ourselves back together so that we can move into the, that full expansion of our life.
Oh my gosh. And before we go any further, I just have to say thank you guys so much for being able to come on here and share that, because it's not an easy thing to share. So I just want to take time to acknowledge that. And for any woman out there who's kind of going through it, and even any man, anybody going through that, please understand that there is hope for you after this. There's hope now while you're going through it, because I know that's something to feel. That's kind of where you hit rock bottom. You're like, God, I don't feel any hope anymore. I know for me, it's like, God, I just don't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to go home. If it wasn't for my kids, I would have stayed other places. I did not want to go home. And so that's the other question I have, is what I would really love to take a minute and really talk about red flags, because like you guys said, it's like we didn't see the red flags. You think, oh, I know the red flags, but I want to take a second to really emphasize what are some red flags that people need to look out for early on, when they're getting involved with someone, if they think maybe that there might be the potential for abuse. What are these red flags? Because I think if we were educated more, like you said, Aaron, we're not educated about that. So it's like, what are these red flags that we can really begin looking for? What's this checklist we need to be thinking of if we have even an inkling? And before I even have you guys open this, I want to say, if you have even an inkling in your mind that you might be in a potentially abusive situation, please, please, please listen to that, because there's so many times, and I can't speak for you guys, but I can speak for myself. When I was in the relationships and I thought something is wrong, like this is not right, there were so many times where I disregarded my own intuition, and had I listened, I probably would have not have stayed in the situation as long as I did, or maybe I would have done something differently that would have protected me differently. So I'd have to ask you ladies, and feel free, anybody, to jump in. What are some red flags that our audience members can look out for if they think that they might be in a potentially abusive situation?
So definitely embarrassing or putting you down, controlling you, who you can see, who you can't see, where you can go, when you can go, asking, what you've spent your money on, just telling you if you're beautiful, or you shouldn't wear that, or you should act like this, or you need to keep your mouth shut, and you just need to be pretty, really simple things that you would never tell a child. I mean, really, really, really simple things. If it's mean to a child, it's mean to you. Like if it's something you would never say to a child, it's probably something that they shouldn't be saying to you. And that's the best way I can describe it. If an 8-year-old can understand it, then you should be able to understand it. And it's really simple. It really is. The flags are so simple, but I think we just get so caught up that we disregard them. Yeah. We just get caught up in like, oh, but they love me, so they're telling me this for my own good. When in reality, it's for their own good, so they can manipulate and control you. So embarrassing, keeping you, discouraging you, putting you down, controlling every part of you, even if it's just, hey, I don't like you wearing your hair in a ponytail. You need to wear it down and curl it all the time, or you can't wear those pants because they make you look fat, or just simple things.
I think also when we think about love, love's not controlling. Love is accepting. Love is appreciation. Love is holding someone up, valuing somebody else. When we think about love, if it doesn't fit into that explanation, or that that a loving feeling, well, that's the first thing. That if it's not feeling like love, what is it then? And communication from there, and some soul searching, and that thing, Ashley, as you said, your intuition. When you get those feelings, I can remember, I think one of the first things my husband did was, one night something happened. I can't remember what it was. He got grumpy over something. I think we were planning our wedding, and that's stressful. Something happened, and he took himself out. And I didn't know where he went. He disappeared for a few hours, and he came back and he was a bit drunk. Now, at that time, I just thought, oh, God, you're silly. But really, that's something that's an indication that he's not coping with something, because he's not. What a crazy way to deal with something. If you really want to love, if you really are in love with someone and you're caring and want to nurture a relationship, well, why would you go and react like that? Or even if you do react like that, then come back and say, well, hey, I'm upset about something. Let's take some time to talk about it. And if we can't, go and get some support from someone else, who's experienced. And I think we all try to do so much on our own. We're not used to reaching out and asking. We're not brought up that way, or most of us aren't brought up that way, to think that, yes, there are resources, or there is someone we could talk to. And it's often it's not your friends who are going to solve that, because with our friends we can be, we go and let off steam, and there is a time for that. But letting off steam and complaining, is one part of it, but then what's the action that we're going to take to resolve it?
So I've got a couple things, maybe a little spin-off too. I experienced a lot of trauma bonding. So for me, it wasn't as simple because I had made it up in my head that we experienced the loss of a baby. He was an opioid addict. So the situations that I was in to help fix him, you know, I took ownership of that. And it became part of me. I took on another soul that was not mine to take on. And I did that voluntarily, almost voluntarily. There was a lot of manipulation and grooming to have me think that way and feel that way. But, you know, I remember the day that I gave up my happiness. I was sitting in a rocking chair and I was looking out the window and I said, I'm going to be with this man because I want our kids to be together. You know, I had an older daughter from a failed relationship. You know, we had twins together, you know, another one, right? So I might as well just stay. You know, I knew that this was wrong. I knew he treated me bad. I knew he was mean to the kids. And it wasn't on a normal, it was just another day. He was leaving the house and there was animosity. It was hostile. And I'm like, what? Hold on. What are you teaching them? You want to stay for them? This isn't how no, this isn't what we do. This isn't what I wanted to teach them. And it wasn't even that made me leave, even knowing that. So there's a lot of trauma that I experienced that changed a lot up here. So, you know, Kate, you're absolutely right with the self-healing and, you know, to let that come up. And, you know, that's why I like, you know, what I found online since leaving. It's just opened up a whole new world for me of empowerment and different healing, self-healing modalities that we can do, you know, to not only empower ourselves, but, you know, share that with people.
I think it's very interesting, and it totally warms my heart that all of us have now entered a profession in which we're either a coach or a mentor, an advocate, or some, you know, I don't even know if I said it in the beginning. I'm a personal development specialist, so I'm an empowerment coach. We all have now found kind of a way to, you know, I live by the saying, be who you needed when you were younger. But I also say, you know, who I was when I was younger is yesterday, is a year ago, is 3 years ago. So, you know, there's so many common and similarities. I mean, the gift giving, I heard someone said, oh, but you'd get flowers, my father did that, you know, the control, the isolation, the questioning, you know, it's all these little things that you don't realize because they're so little and they're so, you know, minute at the time until they're all present and overwhelming. And that's another state of trauma. It's like all these levels, but it is, I think everyone has said it, personal development and, you know, that finding of self. It is just everything, you know. So my whole platform is I strengthen the emotional resilience in the people that I work with. And this is how, I mean, you ladies are amazing. This is how, if this isn't proof to, you know, do the work and it works. You do the work and it works, and there is hope and you can do this. And, you know, I mean, I study neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychology. We have that in us, and there are things out there. YouTube, there is so much information now that it can feel like, you know, overwhelming as well, but you got this. If anyone is going through, you got this, and you by yourself can help and heal you. That's really the only way you're going to heal, is going inside and realizing, you know, you got this. You got this, and we do have this strength. You're stronger than you believe. And so often, you know, guilty, you know, we doubt ourselves so much, but we have that power, and if you don't think so, reach out, please, someone to, Facebook, find a community, find an officer, find, a friend, leave a note somewhere. I understand how scary it is. I understand. Keep fighting because you're worth it.
Yeah. And I think the most powerful point is when we make a decision to take a step, because what's going on in our head is like a mouse on a treadmill, and you go over and you can't see your way out. You feel like you're stuck in a cage, but once you come to that decision within yourself, doors open. But things happen. You meet someone, or once you're in alignment with this is what I want to do and this is where I want to go, the support comes in. And yeah, it may not be an easy road, but it is a road of hope and a road of possibility. So take that step, reach out. I mean, these days, as you say, there's so many resources online. It's there is possibility, but that's not going to happen until we get that resolve within ourselves that we actually want change. And Samantha, I loved your talking about, and now I've lost that thread, but talking about that thing of what you stay for the children, and I partly did that, but that was the wrong decision because I actually put some of my other children in jeopardy. And I used to think this person had so much power over me, but it was actually the police that came and told him to leave, and I couldn't believe it, because that just a couple of policemen talking to him actually did the trick. So sometimes it's not going to come from us, but it's going to come from us if we reach out.
I was going to say something that was really imperative for me, again, because I married, and Samantha, I think that's part of me that resonates, is I married my ex-husband because that was my second father to my kid. I was like, well, I didn't marry the first one. I want to try to make it right, and I'm going to marry this one. And I knew, and here's the other thing, gaslighting was massive in all of my relationships. Gaslighting, I don't know if we actually talk that one out, but ladies, I'm going to say this right now, for anybody who's in a relationship, if they're making you out to be the crazy one, and you're going through that, please understand that is a huge precursor to domestic violence. That in and of itself is domestic violence. But that was a huge one for me. I was made to look crazy when I knew he was cheating on me my entire pregnancy. Like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just hanging out with my friends till 4 o'clock in the fucking morning. Like, I dated one guy, and he left me for a little bit and went to his ex-girlfriend and said, he's like, well, you pushed me there. You made me go do it. No, I didn't. But but I stayed with mine for far longer than I needed to, and it took. But I like when you said when you make that decision to go, you'll go. I remember having a real coming to God moment at the end of my marriage, where it was like, God, like, listen, if you just show me the way, like if you give me something that I can't deny, I will leave. I will leave. And the next day, like, shit hit the fan, like thousands of dollars. Like, I had to find out where thousands of dollars of my money went. I had to find out that he was, he was an opioid addict as well. He was doing tons of pills. Just thousands of dollars in debt. And it just like I said, it hits you, it blindsides you. Like, I could not have fathomed that we were in the situation we were in. But it's like, once that decision got made, everything kind of fell in place, and and the situation absolved itself. Did it have to be uncomfortable for a while? Yeah, because now I have a kid with someone. Like, you want to talk about having to learn to heal yourself while still having to be in a situation that brings you trauma. Like, I had PTSD for the longest time because I still had to see him. I had to share a child with this person. But then what I recognized, and I think I love that you guys talk about the healing, was I recognized that I didn't want my daughter going through this. I recognized that the reason that I had fallen into these traps of abuse was when I went back and I looked, I saw the current in all the women within my family who had gone through previously abusive situations. So because nobody had educated them, they had not educated me. And if I continue to stay in it, how can I educate my child to not do the same thing? What do we say? We don't want our kids to do the same things that we went through. I don't want my daughter to ever have to be in a relationship where she feels like that. And so for me, it was huge in recognizing that it's like, I don't want my daughter to go through this. Like you said, Samantha's like, what am I teaching my kids? And if I'm just staying, what does that teach them? That this is okay, that they can act like this. What does this teach my son? That it's okay for him to be like that and treat women like that, and it's not. Like, no, it's not. So yeah, I think it's really important to recognize them as soon as possible and to just do what you can, man, and reach out. So that's actually going to position us nicely to say, I want to open the floor to solutions for people that are in this situation. What are some things that you guys recommend, or any resources that you know of that might help someone to come out of this situation, or at least put themselves in a position where they can start moving forward to get out of it?
There's hotlines. There's domestic violence hotlines. There are shelters in every state. There are actually ways you could call the police and order a pizza. There has become a secret, almost, way of alerting someone who can help without alerting your abuser. I think it is also important to note that in a lot of domestic violence situations, the abuser is often not mentally stable. They can be on either drugs and alcohol. They can be, they can be mentally unstable. Someone who's going to abuse someone, it's not just an easy situation. Like, this is just a normal relationship with just anyone. There's so much there's so many layers that go into it. So honestly, the best thing you could do is get real with yourself, and then any resource, YouTube, Google, libraries, drop notes, and literally anything you can think of. Get creative if you have to.
So I did a lot of research online. I had kids, I needed to make a safety escape plan for myself, and rather quickly as well. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos. They even have like a lot of court stuff, like help, printouts online. There's so many forms that just will give you, you can just print everything out. But having a support system, contacting anybody on here, somebody that you feel safe with, that you can just share your heart. Sometimes it's just like, oh, well, I'm not ready for shelter, and I'm not ready to do that. And, but I've just got so much to get out. So I think that's maybe where to just start to open up and unisolate yourself. Just speak your truth to someone safe. And then that is just like a little seed that gets planted. Just so many beautiful opportunities that are out there. I met this shirt that I'm wearing, Face of a Survivor. She's out in Arizona, and she has a story of her own, and she links up with other people around the US. I'm an ambassador in the state of Maryland, so I can offer resources free to victims and survivors here in my local state, and she partners nationally as well. But there's a ton of research. Just get on there and just start making some moves. Yeah, I did that like covertly for a while, and it gave me peace of mind. It gave me something to look forward to, something to hold on to.
And I would ask either of you ladies, Erin or Kay, if you know of anything that would be
Yeah, well, definitely talking to someone. Reach out, contact me on Facebook. I went through all my experiences many years ago, so I'm not really I'm not directly working with women like some of you in these arenas at the moment. But in Australia, we do have lots and lots of resources. Sexual assault, survivors of sexual assault. I'm sure if you just find somebody, they will put you onto someone. But I do know that our domestic violence laws here have been ramped up. I know a few friends who have had to go down that track of using the resources, and even myself, I took out restraining orders with my second chap that I was involved with, and I even represented myself in court the second time round, and things that might be in your mind and seem like a great big thing can just dissipate. He didn't even turn up to court, so my permanent restraining order's just got a rubber stamp. So sometimes what's in our mind is clouding our action. But in taking that step of action is the first thing that is going to make you feel like you are dealing with it. You mightn't solve it in the next 24 hours, but you're going to open that little crack and you're going to pave your way for magnificence at the other end of it. And how many of us here could not look at ourselves and go, wow, I've done it, I've moved on, and feel proud about yourself? And that's only because we've walked the walk. We haven't talked the talk. So reach out. Sorry, I've got rambly there, but reach out to someone. Doesn't matter who it is. Just reach out to someone and keep knocking on those doors until you get the answers you want. And if it wasn't for my persistence, I wouldn't have, got as far as I have got. So sometimes the doors you knock on don't open. Just find another one.
Yeah, keep knocking, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be the first time. It might not. Definitely. Keep going. Definitely.
I think the biggest... Oh, go ahead.
Go.
I think the biggest thing is, when you're in that situation, you figure out that you're in that situation, you feel very guilty, you feel very, very full of shame and embarrassment. And the biggest piece of advice is I can say that that's all, it's all a facade. I mean, I can understand why you feel shame and embarrassed and beaten down and all of that, but it's because the abuser has created the environment for you to think that of yourself, and nobody is going to look at you and say that you should feel guilty or shameful or embarrassed. Rather, they're going to say the very opposite. You're being very strong by being vulnerable and speaking up and making that step. And I think that's the biggest thing for victims and abused people, is to realize that all of that is not the truth. You should not feel shameful. You should not feel guilty, and you should not feel embarrassed because it was a crime that was committed against you. It is not something you asked or deserved or should have had happen to you. And instead of asking why, asking the victim, like, what did you do to deserve it? We need to ask why the abuser chose to abuse. And I think once you realize that there's nothing to be shameful of, then that's when you can truly make the first step and reach out to any one of us. I know, that these ladies here on this panel will be more than happy to have a conversation with you and lead you into the right direction. For me, my company, Beaten to Badass, that's what we do. We help you find the resource that you need. We are a stepping stone, and I just think that you have to start somewhere. And even if it's documenting everything to a friend through text message and then erasing that thread. That way there's documentation. You can say, friend, I need you to hold on to all of this, take screenshots and save them somewhere for me, please. However, erase the trail. But that could be the first step, because then when you do leave, you have the evidence and it's with somebody safe. So please know that there's nothing to be shameful of. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. You are strong. And because you're being so vulnerable to take that first step, you're a badass. I mean, I think every woman would agree there's nothing to be shameful about it. And we've all been in that position where we were like, oh, but what are they going to think of me? They're going to think I'm trash or I'm a peon, or no, you're quite the opposite. Quite the opposite.
Y'all, we've all felt dumb at one point. Like I think we have all been like, I feel so dumb. But do you see how powerful this panel is? Like, what? So you're not. Trust me. We've all felt like ashamed, and how could I do this to myself? Or why did I leave sooner? But no.
How did I let this happen, right? That's one big question. How did I let this happen? How could I, stop putting the blame on yourself, because we need to ask why they chose to abuse. And that's where having these conversations is important, and bringing it up that they chose to abuse you. You did not choose to be abused.
All right, ladies, we are 4 minutes past the hour, and I just want to say first and foremost again, how grateful I am to you guys. Again, I want to reiterate, you guys, if to anybody out there who's going through this, if you feel like this might be a situation, please, please, please reach out to any of us. I always like to say that my messenger is always open. If you feel that you are in a life-threatening situation, do what you need to do to get out. If there are kids involved, please, I beg of you, being a parent who's been in that situation with kids, do what you have to do to get them out. We're going to host a panel on the legalities. Get out before somebody takes you out there. So yeah, please reach out, you guys. Please, please, please. Don't think that you have to go through this alone. I think that's the biggest power is they take your sense of community and feeling safe and feeling like you have the ability to reach out to people. So yeah, I totally love that all of you brought that. And I just want to say again, thank you to everybody who comes here and views this. We talk about why is domestic violence so rampant? It's really because we just are not speaking up about it enough. And again, like everybody's talked here, it's common to feel shame and feel stupid. But I think if we continue to keep talking about it and breaking the stigma and realizing that we're all in this together. I looked up some of the statistics and it's just horrifying, the statistics around this. And so, you guys, first and foremost, that's actually one of the things on it. You are not a statistic. You do not have to be a statistic. Being a single teenage mom, I grew up always saying that I hated statistics because statistics say as a single teenage mom that I should not be anywhere near what I am now. So you are not a statistic, nor do you ever have to be a statistic. You are not a number. You are not something to be chalked off or knocked out. So don't ever think that. So, and reach out. Yeah, please, please, please reach out. Don't think that you have to deal with what you're dealing with. And if you feel like you're in an abusive situation, again, do what you have to do to get out. So I just want to let everybody know that on the 16th, I think it's the 16th and the 23rd, I can't remember. We'll have 2 more panels come up in June for this. So please stay tuned for those as well. Thank you guys so much for being on here. Thank you for everybody who came on. If you catch us on the replay, #replay. I'd love to know your thoughts. And as always, catch us on Thursday for another story episode with another amazing woman. And thank you guys so much for being on here. We'll see you guys at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a phenomenal night, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Bye, everyone.